What's going on, everybody? Well, as promised, for hitting 200 subscribers, I'm doing a Q&A episode. Thank you guys once again for subscribing, for interacting with me, for liking my videos. I really enjoy talking to all of you guys, and I appreciate it very much. And thank you to those that sent in these questions. I got a really good bunch this time. So let's get going with your questions. First up, SlyFan101 says, great channel. What age were you when you seen your first horror movie, and what was it? And are you a religious man? Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much. First question is, what age was I when I saw my first horror movie, and what was it? My earliest memory of my first horror movie was when I was around 3 years old, maybe 4, and I saw Child's Play 3. I remember walking into my apartment, and it was just me and my dad, and he was getting ready to put this movie on, and I remember the whole image like it was yesterday, whenever they're kind of melting him down in that tank, and it swirls down, and the camera goes into the little swirl, and then the titles start. So Child's Play 3, to my best knowledge, is my first horror movie that I've ever seen, and then it was just all from there. I was a horror nut. I watched Child's Play all the time. I watched Nightmare on Elm Street all the time. I loved the first Halloween. I used to watch horror movies before bed. I was just a horror fanatic. Nothing really scared me. The only two scenes, and I've said this in multiple videos before, that ever scared me as a kid was Pennywise from It and Zelda from Pet Sematary, but ever since then I was a horror nut. So Child's Play 3 when I was around 3 years old, maybe 4. Second question was, am I a religious man? I'm not going to get too in depth with that because I like to kind of shy away from religion and politics and all that kind of stuff when I do my videos. I like to kind of stick to all the entertainment stuff. But I am a Christian. I'm just not a big church goer. So that's the way I'll kind of answer that question. Next up is Langley Productions asked 3 different questions. So this first question is, what movie this year would you highly recommend for anyone? Well, I'm actually going to go with 3 as far as my best movie going experiences so far this year. First is Hell or High Water. Hell or High Water is like a modern day Western heist movie. It stars Chris Pine, Ben Foster, and Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges is like the Texas Ranger going after these 2 guys. These brothers are robbing banks, trying to get enough money to buy off the bank for their land. And it's just a phenomenal movie. If you just love movies in general, you cannot go without seeing this movie. It's on Blu-ray now, so definitely go pick it up if you haven't seen it. Don't Breathe, which is the best horror movie that's come out this year, in my opinion. I love The Conjuring 2. I like Lights Out a lot, but Don't Breathe was just a great experience for a horror fan to see in the theaters. And funny enough, too, and this might sound a little bit messed up, but me and my girlfriend thought it was really strange that there was actually a blind guy in the theater watching the movie with us. So it was a little bit like role-playing or something like that. But that was just a great movie. Fede Alvarez, the director, he just cemented himself as one of the best horror directors working today. If you haven't seen Don't Breathe, I'm not going to tell you anything about it other than it's just 3 people stuck in a house with a psychopath. That's all I'm going to tell you about it. Awesome movie. Check it out if you're a horror fanatic. And Deepwater Horizon, which I did not expect to be as damn good as it was. This is the true story of the Deepwater Horizon, the oil rig, the BP big explosion that happened a few years back, and to date is the worst oil spill in U.S. history. Directed by Peter Berg and starring Mark Wahlberg and Kurt Russell. That movie literally just grips you by the throat and does not let go until the credits roll. And I did not expect that movie to be as gripping and just as riveting as it was, and I cannot wait till Patriots Day comes out, which yet again teams up Peter Berg with Mark Wahlberg, talking about the Boston bombing, the marathon bombing. So those are the 3 best movie-going experiences I've had this year. Now, interpreting your question a different way is a movie that I would highly recommend for anyone, meaning like you could take the whole family to. I'm going to say 2. First is The Jungle Book. Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book. That was probably one of the most fun theater experiences I've had this year because it was me, my girlfriend, and our 2 kids before we had our daughter. And we went, and it was just this beautiful mixture of seeing a movie that you and your kids can enjoy together and you're laughing and you're having fun, but at the same time for me and my girlfriend, because we grew up with the original cartoon, there was a lot of nostalgia in that movie from the songs, and just being able to get both of those in the same experience was great. And the second one is Zootopia. Zootopia is one of the best animated movies I've seen in years. That movie has the perfect mix of appealing to kids and appealing to adults. There are so many jokes that kids laugh at that adults are kind of snickering at, but there are so many jokes as well where the adults will get it and the kids won't get it. So there's just such a great balance for the whole family to enjoy that movie. So those are the 2 as far as talking about recommending for anyone, like the whole family can go see it. The second question was, what's the best thing that's happened to you in life? We'll say, let's see, best thing that's happened to you in life. I got three things that I'll say. First is being raised by my father. My father was a single parent. He taught me everything I know today about how to be a good person, about how to be a man, about how to raise your kids and raise your family regardless of what obstacles you have to overcome. Anytime I find myself in a sticky situation or a difficult situation or against, obstacles that I feel like I can't cross, all I have to do is think about what my dad did, raising four of us by himself on less than half the money that I make today, and I know I can get through it. So being raised by my father is not only one of the better experiences in my life, but it made me who I am today. Second is meeting my girlfriend, Holly. I had nothing but, getting a little bit personal, I've had nothing but horrible luck with women for the most part since high school. I always pick the wrong one. I'm one of those guys. I always pick somebody who's going to be a miserable experience to be around, and Holly broke that trend. I met her through a mutual, it was a friend of mine, it's her cousin, she set us up, which never really worked out for me being set up, but just from day one, she's been one of the greatest things in my life. And which leads me into number 3, which is probably the best thing that's happened to me in my life, which is the birth of my daughter. We have 3 kids together. 2 of them are from a previous marriage of hers, but my daughter was just born 6 weeks ago, and it's the cliche answer, but it's absolutely true. Whenever you see your kid being born, you feel your heart grow like 10 times in a second. There's no feeling, there's no experience that can top that. So those are my answers for that. And your third question is, if a pizza truck is driving from the east 300 miles per hour and a motorcycle is driving from the west at 150 miles per hour, how long will it take for my YouTube video to be uploaded? Well, from my own personal experience with uploading YouTube videos, depends on how tired you are, it depends on how much you have to do besides doing your YouTube videos, and it depends on how critical the timing of that video is. Because if you're really tired, if you have a ton of shit to do, and if you really need this video to get up now, it's going to take forever to upload. So if you don't have anything to do but upload your videos, it should be up in like 5 seconds. That's my answer for that one, and hopefully your video is uploaded by now. Thank you for your question. Number 3, Holly asks, who is your favorite member of KISS? Gene Simmons, even though he totally screwed me on a bet that I made recently. I'm not going to say what the bet is, I'm not going to say what the stakes are, but you fucked me, Gene, but I still love you. And the second question is, movie character you think you're most like and why? Well, he's not a movie character, he's a TV character, but I think I have a lot in common with Dean Winchester from the Supernatural show. If any of you watch Supernatural, he's the older brother. He's into all the old school heavy metal and classic rock like I am. He's into all the old movies like I am. He has the same style of humor that I do. Like there's an episode where he goes in the Old West and he's like, yeah, I think we should get some posse because I'm a posse magnet. I love posse, and just stupid humor like that, and everybody's just looking at him like, really, dude, are you done? And that's me a lot. I think I'm hilarious. Sometimes I am. Sometimes everybody's just like, this dude right here. So that's my answer for that one. I love his character, and there's many things that he does that is not like me, but I feel like a lot of the times he says things and does things that just, I'm like, that's me. That's me in a leather jacket with a gun. So Dean Winchester is my answer for that one. Ashley asks, run down your faves all in one post. Favorite song, movie, actor, and book. And you have a few more questions. I'm going to leave the actor off because I have another question that's dealing with that. Favorite movie is Die Hard, the original Die Hard. It's my favorite movie of all time. I can watch it over and over and over again and never get tired of it. It's the greatest action movie of all time. It's the greatest Christmas movie of all time. It's Bruce Willis's best movie of all time. I love Die Hard, everything about it. I don't think there's a single flaw in that movie. The script is one of the best scripts ever made. The humor is still sharp and hilarious today. If you watch that movie for the first time today, you will laugh your ass off just like you did whenever the people who watched that movie in the 80s when it was first released. The action scenes are some of the best ever put to film. Alan Rickman's character of Hans Gruber is one of the best villains ever. I can go on and on and on. Die Hard is my favorite movie of all time. Favorite director? I'll say a 3-way tie. Between Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, and David Fincher. Steven Spielberg for the obvious reasons. The guy has made more phenomenal movies than any director out there. You think about his, like E.T. and Jurassic Park, Catch Me If You Can, which is probably my favorite movie of his. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The Indiana Jones movies, just Spielberg has made a phenomenal resume of movies. Christopher Nolan, I love directors that make me think, and all of his movies really make me think. I still need to rewatch Interstellar. Interstellar kind of disappointed me. I didn't like the movie after the whole kind of twist ending started happening where he just jumped into that kaleidoscope dimension. I needed to give it another watch, but other than that, I've loved pretty much all of his movies. I love his Batman trilogy. The Prestige is probably my favorite movie of his. Inception is a close second. I love Insomnia. It's a really, really underrated movie. Memento is one of the wildest movies you could ever watch. And I look forward to seeing what he's going to do with Dunkirk. David Fincher, another director, his style is so dark and gritty and just toys with your mind so much that I love his movies. Seven, Fight Club, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl. I love all of his movies. He's a director who, when I see his name on the poster, they already have my money. I don't care if it's the Oscar the Grouch movie. If it's David Fincher, I'm going to see it. Favorite band is Stone Sour. For those of you who don't know who Stone Sour is, Corey Taylor, the singer from Slipknot. And up until recently, it was also the guitarist from Slipknot, Jim Root. It's like their side project band. They do a lot more experimental music than Slipknot. Slipknot is very dedicated to being just hardcore, heavy metal. And Stone Sour's definitely got some heavy stuff. Some of it actually rivals how heavy Slipknot is, but they go in a lot of different directions. I love that band. I love Corey Taylor's voice. That guy is just... man crush is Corey Taylor. I love the guitarist, Josh Rand. He's one of the best underrated guitarists out there. I could go on and on about why I love Stone Sour. Favorite song is Nutshell by Alice in Chains. That song is just euphoric to me every time I hear it. Favorite album is probably the Black Album by Metallica. That album, bar none, is probably the most influential album of my generation and for me. You know, that's the album that made me pick up a guitar. That's the album that made me get better at guitar. That whole album was like my guitar lessons. Every time I would come to a part of a song I wasn't skilled enough on, I would move on to another one, develop that skill, come back, finally nail that part. I mean, just that album, you can listen to it start to finish. Every single song is phenomenal. Just the Black Album by Metallica is one of the best albums ever. That's my favorite album. Favorite book. I'm not a big reader, but one of the more interesting books that stuck with me was Seven Deadly Sins, The Argument Between Born Bad and Damaged Good, I believe is the title of it. And it's by Corey Taylor, the singer for Stone Sour. And he's had some really interesting books. He's had 3 books out, and I think he has a 4th one coming out. But this book was basically his... it's like half autobiography and half like an argumentative essay. And he's basically trying to say why the 7 deadly sins are a little bit out of touch with today. They're a little bit outdated. And he was trying to kind of, you know, people will argue that, especially those if you're religious watching that. And yeah, again, I'm not trying to get into a religious debate. I'm not saying I agree with everything he says in the book, but it was a really, really interesting read. He's basically telling life experiences having to do with the 7 deadly sins. And he's basically arguing why they need to be updated or why they're kind of outdated with today's society. And then he ends with giving his own version of the 7 deadly sins. Really cool book, really interesting read. A lot of really dark places he takes that book. Some of his personal experiences are just crazy. So check that out if you're into that kind of stuff. Favorite video game is Metal Gear Solid, the first one. I cannot play that game enough. I haven't played it in a while, but like, when I got the demo disc, everybody knows that when the first PlayStation came out, they had these demo discs that came with like Pizza Hut pizzas or something like that. And I remember I got one, and one of the demos on there was Metal Gear Solid. And all it was the very first part of that game when you come up in the scuba suit and you try to get to the elevator. And it stops right before you get into your first boss battle. And I played that demo like 15, 20, 25 times, back to back to back to back to back, until I finally got Metal Gear Solid bought for me for my birthday that year. And I have beaten that game probably 20 times since I've had it. I love that game. I wish they would do a really faithful movie to it, because it really would lend itself good to a movie. The boss battles are some of the most memorable of all time. The characters in it are some of the most memorable of all time. There's nothing more you could say about Metal Gear Solid. If you know the game, you know it's a classic. You know it's one of the greatest games ever made. That's my favorite of all time. Your second question was, what do you believe to be the best performance by an actor? Like, what blew you away the most? That's actually a pretty hard one. there's not really like one performance that stands out in my mind. Like, man, when I see that, I just get burst into tears, or man, that haunts my dreams. But I'll list off a few that I think are so good that I never see the actor, I always see the character. The first one is Anthony Hopkins in The Silence of the Lambs. What he did to that character in that movie was just mind-blowing. The fact that a horror movie got nominated for Best Picture that year, I don't remember if it won or not, but that tells you just his performance elevated that from a horror movie to just a classic. And it's frightening what he did with that role. He was good in the other ones too, but The Silence of the Lambs was it. That was the one that he really delivered on. Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, one of the most quotable roles and performances ever. I love that movie, and a lot of it's because of Samuel L. Jackson. That gave Samuel L. Jackson his career, and now he's one of the hardest working, most seen actors of working today. Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump. Not really a whole lot you could say. It's a phenomenal movie. He tugs on your heartstrings. He's charming. He's relatable. He's sympathetic. Just great movie. The obvious answer, Heath Ledger from The Dark Knight. One of the greatest performances of a villain and in a comic book movie ever. Probably will be the greatest performance of the Joker that we will ever see. I don't care if they make 30 Batman movies. You're probably never going to see anybody top what Heath Ledger did. He just dove into that role head first, and what came out of the other side was just something that we have never seen before. And speaking about a performance I saw recently, which just kind of blew me away with how far the actor went to deliver the things that we saw on screen, was Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. He totally deserved that Oscar. That movie was him saying, I am sick of being snubbed for an Oscar. I am getting that damn statue this year. He, like, reading about some of the things that he had to do to get into that role. I mean, I'm not going to list them all now. You can Google it, but it's mind-blowing that somebody would devote themselves to the art that much. And your last question, where was it at? Okay. What movie from your childhood were you most excited to show your kids? And it's a three-way tie. The Back to the Future trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, and the original Indiana Jones trilogy. I'm kind of like the coolest librarian in the world in my household. Like, my kids come in, they're bored, and I just go to my movie collection. I've got thousands of Blu-rays, and I'm just like, okay, go watch that one. And it's like a homework assignment. And every single time, my son always comes out and he's like, whoa, that was cool. And, you know, every single time I gave him, when me and Holly first moved in together, those were one of the first movies that I gave them to watch. Like, I'm bored. Okay, well, here, go watch Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3. And then, you know, again, okay, those were cool. Okay, well, here's Indiana Jones. And it's one of those things that's so satisfying whenever your kids come out. Like, whenever I gave him Empire Strikes Back to go watch, 2 hours later he comes out and he's like, that was epic. And just those few words just kind of lights me up being a movie fan. I'm like, yes, I made another Star Wars nerd. So those are my three answers for the best movies that I've had the most fun kind of introducing to my kids. Abbott asks, favorite movie with a number in the title, not including sequels, for your 200 subscriber. Easy answer, David Fincher's Seven. I've talked about this movie at length before, but I will kind of summarize that all again. Seven is one of the craziest, grittiest, out of left field endings in any movie ever. And the whole movie is phenomenal, but the ending is what sticks with you. Just the way that it was such a different take on the typical like neo-noir murder mystery. Samuel Jackson, wow. Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt were great together. That's when Brad Pitt was really starting to kind of come into his own in Hollywood. Morgan Freeman's always great. Kevin Spacey as the villain was one of the biggest surprises to ever come into a movie. Just him, when he walked in with his hands covered in blood, from that point on, you had no idea where that movie was going. Anybody that says they did is lying. That is a movie that nobody predicted the ending to. Nobody. It had some of the grisliest murder scenes you're ever going to see. Some of the most shocking scenes, like when the sloth murder, when the guy is strapped to the bed and he's been there for a full year not being able to move, and the guy gets real close and he starts going, just that scene is crazy. I love that movie. I can watch it hundreds and hundreds of times, and it still affects me the same way. Seven is not only one of my favorite movies of all time, but for a movie with a number in the title, that is my favorite one. And my last question, And my last question comes from Rich, who asks, favorite actor of all time and why? Which is why I left it off my question from Ashley. Favorite actor of all time. If I'm going with an actor who has been around for quite a while, it's an easy answer. Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro not only is one of the greatest actors of all time, but he has one of the best resumes of all time. When you think about all the things he did with Scorsese, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, you get into what he did like with Heat and with Michael Mann and Heat, got him backwards. Heat's phenomenal. His comedies are great. Midnight Run is my favorite movie of his. If you haven't seen Midnight Run, it's on Blu-ray. Go see it. Seriously, just pause the video, go watch Midnight Run. Analyze This, Meet the Parents. Even recently, what he did in Silver Linings Playbook was great. I love like the score. Just there's so many things that Robert De Niro did that's phenomenal. He's shown so many different shades in his acting. He continues to be a really good actor when he tries. I mean, just like any other actor, sometimes he goes for the paycheck, but he can still deliver damn good performances, just like he did in his early career today. So I love Robert De Niro. He's probably my favorite actor of all time. Now, if I'm speaking on some up-and-comers, actors who I think are giving Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and guys like that a run for their money nowadays, I'm going to say Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy. I think by the time Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy are done and they're getting ready to retire from acting, their resumes and their performances are going to rival some of the actors that we consider to be the best actors of all time. Leonardo DiCaprio is already pretty much there, and he's in his like late 30s, maybe early 40s. Everything that he's done with Scorsese, he's kind of like the new De Niro as far as that little team up kind of goes. The Revenant finally got his Oscar. The Wolf of Wall Street, The Departed. He is just one of those guys that he dedicates himself 100,000% to his craft, evidenced perfectly by The Revenant. Tom Hardy, that's another man crush. I fucking love Tom Hardy. Ever since I saw Warrior, I have been Tom Hardy's bitch. Whenever he is in a movie, a TV show, a commercial, I stop what I'm doing and I watch it. They could do a movie. They did a movie, Locke. All he is driving the entire movie, and I watched the whole thing. So Tom Hardy is one of my favorite actors ever. He's got a show coming out on FX that looks like it's going to be great. He's one of those chameleon guys. I mean, he's so skinny and lanky sometimes, and then you see what he did to get big for Warrior, and then even bigger for Bane for The Dark Knight Rises. And that's just, that guy, again, is like one of those guys that just devotes himself. So those are probably three of the best answers that I can give you. Robert De Niro, absolutely, because he's been around forever. But two up-and-comers, Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy. Well, thanks for your questions, guys. That's all the ones I got for this time. Again, thank you so much for subscribing and making my channel grow. I thank you guys a lot who come regularly and interact with me on my videos in the comment sections. You know, talk with me about movies and the music and everything like that I post and I talk about. I love the interaction. That's why I do this. I don't just put my opinions out there so everybody can agree with me. I love talking to you guys about all this kind of stuff. So thank you for hanging around, continuing to come and talk with me. I hope you continue to talk with me past this video for however long I do this, up to 1 million, 3 million subscribers. We can get there. Come on. But again, thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun. I love doing these Q&As. Thank you for your questions, for those of you that posted them, and I will see you guys next time.